webinar, navigating SAP to S4HANA's journey. This will be hosted by Project One. And yeah, so we've just got a few house rules that I would like to just run through first. So please have microphones on mute and video off as well. Questions will be submitted to the chat. Feel free to, if there's any questions during each presenter's segment, to offer questions, or if you want to hold it at the end. There's also a QR code for sort of feedback and whether you're interested in a follow-up workshop for more of a deep dive as well. I will also put into the chat a link to the survey as well. So with that, we can probably get started. So it's great to be here to introduce some of the team from Project One, who will be sharing their expert insight around how to deliver S4 HANA transformation successfully. For those who haven't heard of Project One, they are ranked as the UK's #1 boutique consultancy for program management. They specialize in leading the delivery of complex change and transformation through program management, change management, and PMO. So what makes Project One different? Well, you're about to find out that it's experience and seniority of their people, and you will work with the same senior team from day one to deliver change that sticks. So without further ado, I'm pleased to introduce you to our experts today who will take you through the S4 HANA journey. So we have Ian DeSnow, Phil Pemberton, Emma Anderson for what promises to be an insightful and valuable webinar for our members. But before we start, I'd just like to say at 11 o'clock, we'll be holding a 2-minute silence for remembrance. And with that, Ian, over to you.
Great. Thank you very much, Ruben, and good morning to everyone. Glad to meet you virtually this morning on this session. So the first topic we've got in today's agenda is looking at the business case for the move to S4HANA. And I think it's the reason we put this as sort of the first topic on the agenda is the crafting the business case sort of fundamentally gets to asking the question, why are you moving to S4HANA? So I'm guessing everyone that's on the call today, you've joined the call because you are probably on SAP ECC6, you're on the legacy platform, and are aware that you're going to have to move to S4HANA, hence you've decided to join today's webinar. So the business case gets to the root of why do you need to move to S4HANA? The root cause for the vast majority of companies is because of SAP strategy. So it was 10 years now, back in 2015, SAP laid out their strategy for their products. That's when S4HANA was announced. And at that time, 10 years ago, they made it clear that they will be needing their customers to migrate off of the legacy ECC6 at a point in time and move on to S4HANA. The dates that people have to move off, those have varied over the years. But some of the deadline dates are now getting quite imminent. Without going into all the details, the most pressing date is December 2027, so just over 2 years away, which is not very far away in ERP terms, where depending on what version you're on of ECC6, that's when the main support contract is going to come to an end. Possibilities to extend that, but fairly limited. So the absolute driver is that most clients are going to have to move to S4HANA because you have to. So in terms of the business case, there's two parts to it. There's moving to S4HANA, so you can get onto a stable platform, and then there's opening up all the functions and features and benefits that you get with S4HANA. Pulling all that together into one program and one business case, our strong view is that that would frankly be a work of fiction if you tried to do that. The reason being, it is a very complex move to get off of ECC6 onto S4. So most of the clients we work at, the strong advice we give and the way we work with them is to break the program into two parts. So part A is getting off of ECC6, getting onto S4HANA, getting onto the platform. That in itself is going to be a major undertaking, a lot of complexity, a lot of risk. There's going to be quite a lot of change management, even getting onto the platform. But essentially, you're going to do what you do today on ECC6, but you'll have moved and you're going to do that on S4HANA. That will still take several years and cost a lot of money. But you do need a business case for that. Once you've got there, you then need to go to part B with your program, which say, now on the platform, I now want to unlock, use all the functionality, all the real-time data processing, the AI that's all there in the latest versions, all of the latest processes, to really unlock all of those benefits. But that is going to come as part B once you're on the platform. Trying to roll it all into one and say I'm going to migrate and I'm going to get the benefits all in one go, that business case doesn't stack up. So our very strong advice is treat it as two parts to the business case. So part one, the driver is risk mitigation. You need to get off of ECC 6. You need to move on to S4. So you need to scope that program, work out all the costs, etc., etc. Put that into your case, get that approved by your sponsors and stakeholders. Then deliver the program, get onto S4, breathe a sigh of relief, get stable, and then from that point, then move on to part two and start and craft that. That part two business case is going to have a different feel to it. So there you're going to say, I now want to reveal and start to benefit from all these features. There you will have process improvements, ROI benefits, etc. All the stuff you would classically put in a business case to justify you want to need to do it. Key message there is just because you're on the platform, unfortunately, you don't just press a button to get the benefits. You've got to go through quite a big exercise in its own right, and there'll be an awful lot of change management, getting all of your end users to adopt and use all those features. Put all that into your part B business case, construct that, get that approved, but start with part A. The one point I would say is the time is getting really tight now. December 27 is when the main core support will start to finish with SAP. You can extend it, not for this call, but you don't quite get the level of support you've had. So you've got kind of 2 years. That's very, very short. So I would absolutely encourage anyone, and we're very happy to talk to people after this session, on focusing in on getting that case, getting off the core platform, getting onto S4, and then move on to part two. That's the essence of the message around the business case. What I will do is pause there in case there's anyone's got any questions. That's fairly high level summary, but very happy to take any questions.
Well, thanks for that, Ian. We've got a question I'd like to ask. What are the big considerations when building the business case?
So for that part of the business case, it's all about the cost of the program. And these, you need to design your program up front, think all through that, and estimate all the costs. Probably the three biggest component parts are in no particular order. The first one is going to be a systems integrator. Later in this session, we're going to talk a bit more about the importance of the SI and how you engage and choose an SI. Your SI is going to be a very large proportion of your project costs. Circa, I was kind of rule of thumb sort of benchmark is probably about half of your total costs are probably going to be with your SI. So choosing the SI, contracting them, make sure you've got the scope and working out what the cost of your SI is, that's a big part. You're then going to have your internal costs. So these programs are big and complex. You're going to have to, the SI can't do everything for you. So you're going to have your internal teams. You're going to have to budget, work out what all the roles are, how those get budgeted, backfill, etc. And you're also going to have other third parties. Your SI won't be doing everything for them. So you're going to have to work out for across your program architecture, all of the other third parties you may need to be dealing with, work through with the plans, get the estimates and budgets for there. That becomes a component. Third and final big component is SAP themselves. In the current world, pretty much anyone starting today is probably going to have to go down a cloud route. Go back 5 years ago, people had more or less a choice when moving to S4. You could go into the cloud-hosted solution, or you could go on-premise. These days, pretty much you're going to have to go down the cloud route. You need to work through all of the SAP costs. The cost model for SAP in the cloud is very, very different to what it was in the old days on-premise. On-premise was relatively simple, classic, buy licenses, pay your 18% support, etc., etc. In the new world, when you're going into RISE and onto the public or private tenants, it's a subscription model. So you need to work through, again, this is quite complicated. And if you don't get it right, you can end up paying an arm and a leg to SAP. So you need to carefully work through your SAP costings in the new world for the subscription model. Work that out. You'll probably have to contract for variously a 3-year, 4-year, 5-year deal or something like that, depending on what you negotiate. All of that will have to be worked through and then built into your costs. Once you've got those component parts, that together becomes your cost model for your Part A business case.
Perfect. I don't know if there's any other questions before we continue. Rajesh, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Ruben. Hi, Ian. So what you said is right in terms of the business case in itself. So if I see there is no return on investment, why would I even move? Because the way how it looks like is we are moving to S/4HANA because we have to. So where is the return on investment? Because it looks like what you said is like big numbers.
Yeah. Good, great question. So the return on the investment is essentially, it's a risk mitigation argument. So if you decided not to move to S/4HANA and you decided to stay on ECC6, you will end up running on a platform that is out of support. That comes with it a whole shed load of risks. So you won't be getting the support from SAP. At some point, you won't be getting the security updates and the cyber updates. You could still run it. I mean, it won't stop running, but you're going to be running with a far higher risk to business. And given what SAP supports, it's your business backbone. So all your core business processes are likely to be running on ECC6. To keep running on a platform that's basically completely out of support is extremely high risk. There's no reason why you couldn't present that case to the board, outline all the risks and go, to save a lot of money, let's not move to S/4HANA, let's just stay and let's just live with the risks. There's no law of physics that says you can't present that case, but it would be a very unusual, brave board that's going to say, yeah, we're happy to live with these risks, crack on. So you are right, Rajesh, that there isn't a return for this Part A of the business case, just getting onto the platform. There is very little return, but it's all about risk mitigation. It means you're on a platform that's future-proof, that's protected, that you can safely run and keep your business running for the next 10, 15 or more years. But you don't get a cost saving or an ROI saving, but you absolutely de-risk the business. That's the driver of the Part A business case.
Right.
Perfect.
Right. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Ian. If there's no other questions, I guess we can move on to the next segment.
Thank you, Ruben. So good morning, everyone. My name is Phil Pemberton. I've got the unenviable task of trying to take you through my thoughts over the next 10 minutes on how we go about shaping and then ultimately delivering the roadmap from ECC6 to S/4HANA. As I say, I've got around 10 minutes to share my thoughts. Typically, this activity takes anything from 6 to 12 months and sometimes much longer, depending on the starting position of the organization. So let me start by saying, moving from ECC6 to S/4HANA it's a business critical, it's multi-phase and it's multifaceted journey. And it combines business, and I emphasize that, the business and technology transformation. So, regardless of the business appetite for change, this journey inevitably demands a degree of business reinvention. Whether that's changes in strategy and operating model to rethinking business processes and hopefully exploiting some of those greater opportunities for process digitization, standardization, simplification, and real-time data analytics, amongst others. So I'm slightly contradicting what Ian said. I think there are benefits from day one, but they don't just come by switching on the system, which is what Ian was alluding to. And he's absolutely right to state that the business case, the fundamental business case at this stage, is around addressing technology obsolescence. So in its simplest form, a roadmap communicates the starting point of our journey, if you like, and the end point, and also then how the business will navigate between those two states. In reality, it's more complex than that. S/4HANA, SAP today, is absolutely central to empowering your business capabilities. And the roadmap will communicate the why, the what, and the how of the delivery program. So where do people start on that journey? Now, some organizations choose to start at the beginning. So they start through discovery and baselining their as-is position. However, we recommend starting with the end in mind and first defining the vision and the strategy. And the aim there is to align the move to S/4HANA and position that move within both business and IT strategy spheres. That visioning piece addresses the why you're embarking on the journey and really helps to clarify the business drivers and the expected outcomes and benefits of the program. It talks about the what the future will look like, and it sets the expectations around the target operating model and what this will mean for functions, operations, and individuals. And it also really starts to legitimize the change and emphasize the critical executive buy-in and sponsorship by talking about who is endorsing the vision. Now, even at that early stage in the visioning piece, as I'll refer to it as visioning, there are some strategic decisions to be made. Some of those are technical decisions around migration approach. You will have heard of phrases such as greenfield and brownfield, bluefield, etc. And you also need to consider the deployment model. And Ian's stolen my thunder a little bit by saying that, you know, SAP's licensing policies for new customers today, new S/4HANA customers, is really narrowing the playing field, and it's moving that towards software as a service. So cloud is really the only option around licenses and being able to consume the SAP functions. What I'd also suggest in this stage is there's some essential no regrets work that can be performed alongside strategy and vision. And in some cases, you need to do it because it informs the latter. And I think we can call this work assessment and readiness. Now, the temptation here, and what we see quite often, is that the tech heads and tool heads really take over this piece, and that limits the stage to an assessment of current technical landscape. So you're measuring the quantifiable levels of custom code, data volumes and quality of that data, third-party middleware components, add-ons, extensions. But these are really important to supporting some decisions. But for me, you know, they just don't go far enough. So
Perfect. Thanks, Phil. So you mentioned they don't go far enough. Could you elaborate on that, please?
Yeah. So assessment methodologies and tools, of which there are many, both third-party and SAP provided, they focus on giving you the answers to the technical questions. So these technical questions are typically objective, and they have a quantifiable correct answer. They're right or wrong. But what they don't do is they don't ask or answer the more subjective questions about organizational readiness and the extent to which change management is going to be a real factor and a real critical success factor at that. And for me, these are the bigger questions. So these touch every part of the organization. So for example, understanding how SAP-enabled processes are driving business capabilities and delivering on your operational goals today is pretty fundamental to designing your target business and technical architectures. And that's why we recommend mapping business capabilities to business processes if you haven't already. And then against that map, starting to assess levels of SAP adoption, levels of SAP enablement across end-to-end business processes, how your processes fit to SAP standard, both today in ECC 6, because that will allow you to understand the transition gap, but also ideally how they also fit to S/4HANA. And for that, you're going to need an SI or other partner to help you understand S/4HANA in those terms. I think you need to measure your SAP user proficiency today. You need to understand the fit gap between SAP master data and transactional data today in ECC 6 and how that relates to the S/4HANA data model. You need to understand dependencies on non-SAP systems, and that's not just the things that are integrated. I'm talking about systems here in the wider sense of how do you execute a value stream? Do you use it entirely in SAP as designed, as standard? Or are there breakout points? Are there handoff points? Are people actually relying on other sources of data? Or are actually people completing some of those transactions, some of those processes using non-SAP methods? all of those things, bringing those back together to ensure a clean core in the move to S4HANA, that transition gap just gets bigger. And you need to know that up front. And coming back to Ian's point on business case, that will drive the complexity, and it will also drive, therefore, the cost of the journey itself. And I think the other thing that often gets, the last point I'll make is the other thing that often gets missed is our SAP data as a trusted source is being used for reporting and decision making across the organization. So often SAPs are, the golden record, and really used around finance and accounting, but in other elements of the business, they're still relying on data that sits in spreadsheets and other data sources.
Perfect. So, got a question. Given the deadline, we're running out of time, so how would you summarize how to move forward?
Okay, well, as I say, this is what I'm describing here are activities that typically last 12 months over the life cycle of an SAP S4HANA program. But look, businesses making the move from ECC6 to S4HANA, you've been running SAP now for at the very least a decade, and in many cases, and I can cite a number of cases where organizations have embedded SAP into their corporate processes for the last 20, 30, or even 40 years. And it's reasonable that over that time, most of those organizations will have deviated from SAP standard practice, whether at the outset, at the implementation, or through subsequent upgrades, or through just that divergence around process practice and SAP transactions. And the wider that gap is a widening of the transition gap. It's making the river a little bit wider that you've got to kind of build a bridge across from ECC6 to S4HANA. So a message here is it's not just a technology upgrade. Even if it's predicated on addressing technical debt and technical obsolescence initially, you can't just move to S4HANA and assume that everything's going to work the way it did. Not without clarity around your vision and your strategy, an alignment between the business and technology that we've talked about through that. I hinted at through enterprise architecture that you need to do. You need to plan as far in advance and constantly review and reiterate those plans as you move along. And then the final point, and I know Ian's going to talk much more about this next, is you need to recruit and onboard and secure the right people, the right resources to deliver your program. And right at the heart of that is ensuring that you get the right system implementation partner, the system integrator, because they will lead so much on thought leadership and understanding what that future state looks like and how you use it, best practice within the context of your organization.
Perfect. Thanks, Phil. I've just got a question from Rajesh. What options have we got if we don't want to continue with SAP given the short time? Also, there's heavy considerations in place with ECC. How does it fit the cloud S4HANA?
Okay, so I'll try and take that in two parts, and by all means, Emma, Ian, jump in as well. So I think the first part, what are your options? Well, at this stage, those options are fairly limited. You could continue to run ECC6 beyond the deadline 2 years away. And you could do that through third-party extended support or even an SAP extended support were that to be available. But that you wouldn't get new innovations, and eventually you wouldn't get the patching, etc., that you need to ensure that your system's compatible and your operability is secure. So you're really just kicking the can down the road with that option. You've either got to stay with SAP and make that move to S4HANA, and that means also a move to the cloud, which will likely be different for you on SAP, even if you've experienced it in other applications. Or you effectively look at a third-party alternative. I mean, what I would say about that, I mean, we're agnostic here, but what I would say about that is you're going to face the same challenges, but you won't have that base of understanding and familiarity and knowledge that you've got within your user base now around SAP and its processes. So the safer bet is probably to remain with SAP if the economic justification is there.
Bill, I think it's 11 o'clock.
Apologies.
So we'll just wait for 2 minutes and then we'll continue.
Yeah. Hi, Ruben. Hello? Hello?
Thank you for that, everyone. Phil, back to you.
Yes, I think I addressed the first part of the question. The second part, as I understood it, were questions around transition. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah. Go ahead,
Sorry,
Rajesh.
Ruben. Yeah. Phil, what I was saying is there is a lot of customization in the ECC.
mhm,
So how if it would be a normal fit going into S4 Cloud, S4 HANA
Yep.
Cloud, like a public
Yep.
edition, so how it would work?
Yep.
Because it will create its own challenges, like the way that Ian was talking about in the two-step approach.
Yep.
So there itself, there
Yep.
is going to be a lot of complexity in the way how we are trying to move from heavily customized ECC into S4 HANA. Would it
Yep.
fit the block? Like, are you putting, you know,
You,
talking about
yeah.
apples to
You know.
apples here?
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, essentially, almost a prerequisite for moving to the cloud is a very high degree of fit to standard. So, part of the piece of work I was describing and part of that change impact assessment is to understand all of that custom code and how does it fit into standard within S4HANA. But even if it does, and even if there's something there that fits your level of customization today, you've still got to move the business along. You've still got to redesign your processes around that. You've still got to redesign your strategy and your offerings and your third-party plugins. You've got to redesign all of that around standard. Now there might be some level of hope here in that we've worked with clients where they've used their considerable size and negotiation strength to agree a perpetual licensing situation with SAP where they could continue to run on premise, but with an understanding and almost an agreement that at some point in the future they would effectively return to standard, make themselves fit from an application point of view to then make that move to cloud and do it as that kind of second or third stage. So we know that happens. It happens in some of our clients today and we've worked with, but that would be on an individual basis. As it stands today, SAP salespeople will just not have the ability to sell you an on-premise license. I mean, it's a bigger topic that, and we're happy to talk about it specifically with you and work through it with you.
Sure, thanks. Yeah.
I've got another question. So, what if you cannot upgrade to the cloud for compliance and security reasons?
Yeah, it's the same question really, or the same answer. As I say, we work with clients in this space who've not been ready across all value streams to be able to do that, and they have being able to negotiate a bespoke arrangement with SAP that allows them to continue in an on-premise fashion. But part of this transformation program is to attempt to return as closely to standard as possible. and where that's just not easy in a short time frame, you need to come up with strategies for how you do that, how you use SAP to run your practices. So the mantra is clear: adopt SAP and adapt your process to fit, not the other way around.
Cool. Perfect. So if we continue, Ian, having the SI team is essential. So how would you go about selecting the right one?
Okay, thanks, Ruben, and thanks, Phil, for that summary as well. So programs like these are, I think, as people are probably learning from this call, are big and complex. The term I don't like when I hear it is people refer to move to S4HANA as inverted commas an upgrade, because I think that underplays the complexity of what you're dealing with when you move to S4HANA. In effect, the move to S4HANA is a re-implementation of your ERP. And what that means is you are going to need the support and services of a systems integrator, an SI, in order to deliver the program. As part of that, we have sort of three key sort of points that when we work with clients, we work with them to try and get this right. So one of them is choosing the right SI in the first place. Second one is contracting them in the right way. And then the third one is working with them in the right way to deliver the program. As Phil was mentioning, the dynamic of how you work with the SI is absolutely key to the success of these programs. These programs are big and complex and will have lots and lots of challenges. And you need to be facing into that together, you as a business, you as a project, with the SI team, joined at the hip and working through. And even with that, these are really difficult programs to deliver. If you haven't got the right SI or you're not working with them the right way, these programs suddenly go an order of magnitude more complicated. So the first question is choose the right SI. There are quite a number of SIs out there who you can choose from. We won't be able to go through all of them on this call, but very broadly speaking, you've definitely got the big guys. So that's Accenture, IBM, Capgemini, sort of the big global players. You've got the big Indian players like Infosys. You've got the big four, audit consulting based firms, and then there's quite a range of sort of slightly smaller SIs who will be targeting maybe more the sort of the mid market, so maybe FTSE 250, FTSE 350 type organizations. They are all different. They all have their different approaches. The art here, and I say it's an art, you've got to choose the right one to work with you. And we've done this on quite a number of clients. What I would say is you would not probably have time to do a classic. Let's do an RFI. Let's go down there, shortlist. Let's then go to an RFP, work all through that. You probably don't have time to work through that. We can help sort of short circuit that, but you do need to get down to quite a shortlist quite quickly. Engage with the SIs, understand their methods. They all have broadly similar methods because they have to be compliant with the way SAP advises people to implement S4, but they have their own nuances and differences. So it's trying to filter out what's right for you as a client. You'll have your client business, your client culture, and what's right for your program. And you're trying to sift down and get to the right SI. Crucial to that is as you go through this process, you are going to get the shiny suited salesman with the flash cars turning up and pitching to you. And that's great as part of the process. But at some point in the selection, you want to boil it down to the team that you're actually going to be working with. So let's say you pick one of the big three. Now, these people have like 20, 30,000 consultants, and they've probably done hundreds of projects in sort of tens and tens of countries. All of that doesn't really matter. The only thing that matters is the team of sort of 20, 30 that you've got in front of you. They're actually going to be delivering your program. So as part of selecting the SI and the methods and everything are right, it's also selecting the team and making sure the team that they are pitching is the right team that you want to work with. And sort of what I've learned through bitter experience is, in essence, you're going to want to interview the key players that they're proposing and work out if you can work with them. There's that strange thing about chemistry, nebulous concept. You've got to work out, can you work with these guys? And, because you're going to be working with them for years on this. So choosing the SI, the right SI, not easy, but we've done it and we've sort of taken many clients through, and broadly speaking, we've ended up with fairly successful choices on that. Once you've chosen them, you then need to contract them. Again, that's a topic in its own right. It's the normal question that pops up is very broadly T&M, time and materials versus fixed price. We can debate for many hours or days on the best way of doing it. My personal view is, with the complexity of these programs, is try and go fixed price. That doesn't mean fixed price at the start of the program from the outset, because no one could ever do that, but you break it down into component parts. So maybe you start, Phil mentioned, you may be starting with a discovery phase. So you absolutely can fix price with assumptions and with a healthy budget for all the change that you're needed to get through the discovery phase. Once you got through the discovery phase and everyone knows sort of what they're dealing with, and you've got a much better understanding of the project and the times, you'll then move into scope and price the main delivery phase. Again, my strong personal advice and recommendation is try and focus on fixed price. The run rate on these programs is eye-watering. If you're on a T&M, you are literally got cash rushing out, bagfuls of cash rushing out through the door every day of the week under a T&M contract. To manage that yourselves is going to be quite difficult. So I would always, as best you can, get down to focus on fixed price. If some of the challenges you're facing is there's simply too much uncertainty to get to a fixed price, that's kind of a question back on yourself, is why have we got this uncertainty? What is causing all this uncertainty? We need an exercise to bring some clarity on that in order that we can move the program forward. You would not want to be kicking off a program that's got wall-to-wall uncertainty like that. So contracting the SI, really important, get that in place. Third and final bit is then you're actually mobilizing, and yet they're going to live with the SI for probably the next 2, 3, or 4 or 5 years, depending how long your program is. You have to work with them. So you have to work out a way of working with this SI. So you've got to get the governance right. What we do as Project One is very much like a firm but fair approach. So we've got to be fair to everyone. This isn't about sort of whenever all the problems, you always blame the third parties. It's like you've got to face into the problems. It's never a black and white like that. You've got to get to the root problem of the problems, sort them out. Sometimes it's client side. Sometimes it might be other vendor problems. Sometimes it might be actually the SI themselves. The essence should be you're always trying to focus on the problem, not on sort of allocating blame and sort of reaching for the contract to see who pays for what. You want a way of working together that is incentivized, everyone's got the right end goal in mind, which is delivering this program. And I remember one of my very first programs I delivered, S4. We almost had it as a mantra. Every briefing we had the sponsor came onto the call, and he only had he opened every call with 2 messages. 1, there's no customization on this project, and 2, we're delivering in January XXX the date. And that mantra percolated into the whole team. So whoever you spoke to into the SI, they'd go, you'd say, morning, Joe, you bumped them at the coffee machine, and they'd go, we're not doing customization, are we? I go, absolutely right. You go, and we're hitting the go live date. I go, absolutely right. Now that means there's a whole load of other things you've got to deal with. But that sort of joint, the SI got what the client wanted and what the project needed, and then that sort of percolated through. So that way of working, again, it's more an art than a science, but team we've got here at Project One, we're really adept at being that sort of, we were the people who will sort of kind of hold everyone to account, including ourselves if necessary, but it's focused on the end goal. I will pause there, Ruben, for any questions on the very big topic of choosing the right SI.
Right. Yeah, if anyone's got any questions before we move on. I'll take that as a no. So I think we're ready to move on.
Okay, and I think I'm now handing over to Emma on the topic of change management.
Yes, perfect. Thank you, Ian, and good morning, everyone. And Phil and Ian have teed this up really beautifully for me, because they've both mentioned about these types of transformations not just being about IT, which they absolutely aren't. These transformations are an opportunity to fundamentally transform your organization. So that's why change management is absolutely crucial. It shouldn't be perceived as an essential or a nice to, not as an essential or a nice to have. It is absolutely critical to the success of these programs. And Ian talked about the 2-phase approach in terms of benefits realization. It's change management that will unlock those benefits once the system's gone in and people are actually using the new solution. So I would just like to stress, if you frame these change and transformations as systems upgrades, people will treat it just as that, as it's just an upgrade, it's just a piece of technology. It's not an opportunity to embrace. So this is all about how do you frame that change so that people understand what it means for them, how it will make their working lives easier, and how it will unlock opportunities and benefits across the entire organisation.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Emma. So a couple of questions. The first one, what are the key benefits of change management brings?
So there's three key benefits, Ruben. So the first one is about reducing risk and avoiding disruption. So Phil talked about the fit to standards and the adopt, not adapt mindset. That really needs to be, a golden thread through everything that you're doing in these transformations. By adopting that fit to standard, you preempt and you prevent the opportunity for rework, costly customizations, really adding complexity to what is essentially fit for standard out of the box. So really change management needs to be positioned as a way to reduce the opportunity for that complexity to creep in. The second key benefit of change management is around driving user adoption. So having a change management approach that really focuses on the human element, user-centered approach, fostering collaboration and building trust, that really is key to unlocking teamwork, people challenging the status quo and being excited about the new system and wanting to embrace it. And then the third point is around sustaining change, so making the change stick once that system's gone in. Change management is what continues the change being a success beyond that system being launched. So making sure that you've thought about the end in mind before you start, and having things like change networks really established, having roles recognised within the organisation, and having the tracking mechanisms in place to ensure that you are actually monitoring and driving those adoption statistics forwards. That's where change management really comes to play, and that's where you really see the benefits.
Thank you for that, Emma. So how do you bring SAP S4 to life for employees?
Oh, it's a big question, Ruben. So I think for me, the key thing is about making it human. Let's not forget that at the end of the day, delivering an ERP transformation is about driving adoption. And that doesn't come through processes or systems, that comes through talking and engaging with people. So it's really key that people don't forget that people don't work in boxes and nice linear plans. They will go on their own change journey, and our role as change managers is to support them to get from A to B. So a few hints and tips from me in terms of practical advice that hopefully you can take away from today. So my first piece of advice would be to harness the power of storytelling. So really bring to life what the changes will mean after the technology has gone live, and make it really tangible. So examples like, previously it took me 3 days to create this report, and then with our new ERP solution, it's going to take me 3 clicks and a minute max. So really using examples that people can grasp onto, they can easily digest and understand. That's how people can relate to this. And I think with ERP transformation, there's so many acronyms. We talk about all of this jargon. People won't understand that, and people will stop connecting if you continue to talk in a technology language. So like I say, don't forget you're working with humans. Use storytelling as a way to connect, because people connect through examples and things that matter to them. Like I say, not techie language. My second piece of advice here is around change champions. So really ensuring that you invest the time to stand up your change champions within your change network. They are really key in terms of driving that adoption within their teams. And I stress the word within, because change doesn't get delivered through driving it through a program team. It gets delivered through changes pulling the rest of their teams on this journey. So anywhere where you can drive the opportunity for peer-to-peer messaging and support rather than just top down or program down, that would be my strong advice on that piece. And then similar to the story messaging, think about metaphors. So making ERP transformation understandable. So with my current client, they are going from no SAP at all to using SAP for the first time. And I talk about the analogy of moving from black and white TV to using Netflix. And we've had a few jokes about a play on that, where maybe it's Blockbuster, and we talked about love film, but it's using life experience to help people actually understand how big a journey they are about to go on. And then just the last piece on here, which I think is something that a lot of people will hopefully find useful, is at my current client, we are creating a series of animations. So if you think videos no longer than 2 to 3 minutes each, and each episode will focus on a specific role or a persona and then their pain points. So it's a bit of a split screen design. So if you can imagine, my client is a manufacturer. So we've got an episode that focuses just on the impact of not having the right materials at the point when they need to be consumed for production on the shop floor, and all of the manual processes that they have to follow today in terms of pen and paper and Excel spreadsheets. And then the split screen to the future is, they're there, they've got a terminal at the point of need on the shop floor, and they're able to complete their work in a much more timely and effective manner. And I think we've got a line manager tearing their hair out, and then they're looking very happy because their team are working in a much more efficient way. So I just really encourage, wherever you can, to create short, sharp messaging around addressing specific pain points, making it human, and tailoring it to everyone's individual role.
Great, thank you, Emma. So another question, what are 3 practical things that organisations can put into practice right now?
So my first piece of advice comes back to my point around change champions. So from the outset, really think about who are your change network. And it's really important to think about, if you're working with a group of SMEs, which is completely normal as part of these transformations. I don't really think you can deliver these without engaging a group of SMEs from the business, treating them like an extension of your change team. I often refer to our SMEs, where I am at the moment, they are an extension. They have a dotted line into change. We can't do our job in change without them, and vice versa. So thinking about that strong connection, how as a change team can you help upskill the SMEs? Because the tradition here is that these are people who have worked in operational environments. They've probably never been through a change of this scale before, and it's your responsibility as a change manager to give them the knowledge and the skills they need to help with that business pull with their teams. So really think about what capability, what knowledge, what can you do to help them be at their best to really drive this change. I think the other piece around change networks is driving a really strong sense of team. Ian talked about the criticality of getting the right people involved in terms of the program team, but this is just as important with your business SMEs and your change network. If you haven't got the right people, call it out, and frankly bring in the right people with the right behaviors and attitudes, because these are the guys that you're going to be looking for to go out, really be the eyes and ears into the rest of the business and really champion the change. So they need to have the right behaviors, and coming back to that, make sure they feel valued. So think about how you as a change team can ensure that they're valued, but also how does the leadership team reinforce the importance of their role? So are they giving up their time? Are they rewarding them in the right way? Are they motivating them in the right way by tying it back to things like their personal objectives, and how they can see that this is actually going to help them with their career longer term, not just once the solution's gone in. I think the last point is just start with the end in mind, which I think is a phrase that Phil talked about, but really think about who are your business as usual change leads. So once the program's gone and the scaffolding of the program team's disbanded, including the change team, who is on the ground driving adoption of the solution, and that continuous improvement mindset that's so important, given that we know that the actual benefits come further down the line once the system's gone in. So thinking about creating permanent headcount roles within the organisation, getting that agreement early and investing the time to stand that up properly before the system switched on. So that's my first piece. My second piece of advice is really assess your leadership team's capacity and capability to support the change. So it's really key that the leadership team are aligned on what day one means. And we talked about the difference between day one and day two. Day one is getting the system switched on. Day two is the vision and the North Star of the business improvement piece. So really ensure your leadership team understands the division and they understand what day 2 means and what they can do to reinforce it. I think getting the leadership team to stand behind day 1 is just the beginning, is a really key message. And I think including in that piece around the leadership team's capability, really taking the time to consider where sponsorship of these programs sits. I've worked in a couple of these now where we've seen sponsorship sit within IT and then sponsorship sit within business. Coming back to my point at the start, these are business transformations, and having sponsorship sitting in IT instantly gives us the wrong perception that these are technology system upgrades and not transformations. And my third piece of advice is don't forget that you're working with people. As I mentioned, people don't sit in boxes, they don't follow linear plans, they will behave the way that they want to behave. Really take the time to go out, talk to people, listen, ask for their opinion, ask for their input. Don't try and kind of motor through that piece, and make sure you're constantly checking back in with how people are feeling.
Perfect. Kish, you've got a question?
Yeah, good morning, guys. Really good, interesting material you guys have shared. I just wanted to share and highlight some of the areas which I fully agree with you guys on. MBDA Systems is actually going through this journey today with something like 20,000 people employed, a good number of people impacted. The biggest messages I would say is really sort of restating what you guys have just said, is take this as a business transformation program. It is very much looking at that opportunity once in a lifetime, because whatever SAP system you had 10, 20 years ago, you won't get the same opportunity to make the changes now. It gives an opportunity to look at how your processes are working, how they differ from entity to entity. How can you try and look at simplification, harmonization, reduce your costs? You tend to have a lot of customization over a period of time, whether it's 10 years, 15 years, which is costing the business, hidden costs, which are not really being looked at. So there are a huge amount of opportunities with this transition, this transformation. And one of the other things which I noted was really the selection of the systems integrator. That's such a big call. Having the right people with you, those people you're working alongside on a daily basis. If you don't have a good relationship, if you don't have a good partnership, it's not going to work. And we've been quite fortunate to have the systems integrators who are working alongside us on a daily basis, and we've got strong relationships, and it's making things work. Along the way, don't expect it to be a program which will be smooth sailing all the way through. You will get people leaving, you'll be getting people joining, whether it's from your systems integrator or you're from your own business. But people and change management have been quite key in terms of what we're doing at the moment. And it's taking the people along the journey and not sharing with them later on, this is what you're going to do. So there's a whole host of things I could carry on, so I don't want to take up too much time. But everything I've heard this morning pretty much reflects what we're going through at the moment. A big business commitment, a huge cost, but it's got to be managed with the right sponsorship, the right daily management, the right level of reporting, whether it's weekly or daily, and very much a focus on getting away from the RICEFs. You don't look at customizations, minimize those. Take this as a good opportunity to find those operational efficiencies for your business. So it's not a question. I just want to share my reflection of what you guys have said.
Thank you, Kish. Rajesh, do you want to go ahead?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I know that Krish made a very good point there. I mean, I'm just on your topic as well. The change management, the way I look at having deployed many programs like this, one of the things is adoption, solution adoption. A lot of these programs, what we see is adoption starting later on towards the mid or later part of the program. But I would say it should start right from the start of the program, and who's going to be impacted, what sort of areas are getting impacted, and therefore, how do you prepare yourself going after go live? So I always say this one thing called you need to prepare for the baby. You cannot have plans for it after the baby is born.
I like that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that,
Yeah.
Rajesh. Yeah, so if we continue, Emma, I've got a couple more questions before we finish. So why do employees resist adopting SAP S4?
Yeah, I'll keep it really short because I'm conscious we're at time, Ruben. So I think we've covered a lot of this already, but I think the main thing for me, people resist it because they can't relate to it and they don't understand what it means for them. So bringing to life activities where people can actually physically step things through. So an example that we are working on with my current client is something that we've called an immersive process room. So this is where people can come into, we've got a big room that we've taken out of action and we've covered it in TV screens, and we've got the end-to-end process published on the screens. And the way this works is we invite in waves of the business at a time by persona. So we've got dedicated persona walkthroughs where we explain specifically what it means for them. But then we also encourage cross-functional workshops as well. So I think the key thing with ERP is that I describe it as a relay race, and a lot of people forget that they do their part of the process, they complete their transaction, they plug in their data, and actually if any element of that is wrong, it can have a huge impact upstream. So it's really helping business users understand that end-to-end, how they can work together as a cross-functional network. That's really where you can help unpick any sort of resistance. So it really comes back to my point around, make it personal, help people understand what it means for them, use personas, use role-based learning. That's another a really important factor here, is think about their learning journey from a training perspective and think about tailoring that to them. So again, if you've got any element of manufacturing people working offline, how do you bring it to them? So how do you bring the learning actually to them on the shop floor, because they've got no way of actually attending classroom-based training or attending any sort of online portal. So I'm conscious of time, so rush to it a little bit, Ruben, but they would be my key points.
Well, thank you. And then one last question is, what's one thing you would do differently next time?
So a big learn from my last transformation is not overlooking the line manager population. So I think as programs, we tend to think about the leadership team and the sponsors, and then we think about end users. There's that massive middle layer in the middle, which they are the people that are working shoulder to shoulder with their end users on a daily basis. And if they aren't bought in, they don't understand the changes for their team, they're not feeling supported, the changes won't stick. It's a recipe for disaster. So really thinking about what can you do to specifically work with that group. So taking them away from all of your other audiences, like I say, making them feel valued, giving them a toolkit that they can use with their teams, and really helping them, because not only are they going through this journey themselves, they're helping them teams go through it as well. So they are a real specific audience group that needs tailored attention. And I'll stop there because I'm conscious we're running over, but thank you, Ruben.
Perfect. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, so if there's no further questions, feel free, if anyone wants to contact Ian, Phil, or Emma directly, happy to facilitate that myself. But I'd like to thank our speakers, Emma, Ian, and Phil, for their time today and their insightful views into sort of navigating this transition. So with that, I'd like to bring the webinar to a close. I want to thank everyone for attending. Yeah, so if you've got any questions that you'd like me to pass on, or feel free to get in touch. Otherwise, I'll be sending over the brochure that Project One have kindly forwarded, and we'll also be sharing this recording to sort of the wider audience of the ADS group members. So again, thank you for your time today, and have a good day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Ruben.
Thanks
Thank
all.
you.
Thanks, Ruben.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Yeah.
Have a good
Thank
day.
you all. Thank you. Take care.
Bye.